It's time for qualifying ahead of the Hungarian Grand Prix in 2026, a race that hasn't been won from pole for the last 5 Grand Prix around the Hungaroring. But don't be fooled, qualifying is so crucial here. In the previous 40 races around this 2.7-mile circuit, only 4 have been won from outside the top 4. And it's going to be really competitive too, because the last 4 pole positions here have been decided by a combined time that doesn't even get to a 1/10 of a second. So it's going to come at you thick and fast today around these 14 corners, 6 to the left and 8 to the right. You've got 9 megajoules of energy and plenty of braking and corners to get your batteries topped up to the max. Softest tyres in the Pirelli range, C5, C4 and C3, and the tyres are really hanging on for a dear life by the end of a lap. And so far this weekend, well, we've had Charles Leclerc fastest in free practice 1, Lewis Hamilton fastest in free practice 2, Lando Norris fastest in free practice 3. 3 different drivers, 3 sessions, topping the timing charts. And this time last year, we had a surprise pole as well. So Martin, up for grabs today, I think.
Very much so. All we could think about yesterday was how fast Ferrari were. And suddenly, McLaren turn up to the show today. Kimi Antonelli had to miss free practice 1 yesterday because you have to let rookies in your car twice per year. Seems odd when he's still a 19-year-old himself, but he took a little while to get up to speed. He certainly did that again in free practice 3 earlier today. So you're absolutely right. It's going to be incredibly close between McLaren, Ferrari and Mercedes. We still can't count out Red Bull either.
And as you can see from the flags that were fluttering at the back of the grandstands, wind has picked up a little bit. It's gusting around and it's swirling around as well. And it's something of a tailwind going into turn 1 where we look from at the moment. So you can see a few flags being waved by the fans here, but it is a bit swirly, and that's not good for the drivers, as we found out yesterday afternoon.
No, and they were breaking into a headwind down the pit straight yesterday, which was helping them at that point, but certainly phases of yesterday anyway. But they've managed to get rid of a few of the bumps overnight down there. The last corner, turn 14, has been playing up as well in terms of this surface, and I'm sure the teams will have tuned their car, tuned their suspension ride heights and other aspects to try to help the drivers not keep just locking up the front axle, burning out those front tyres down into turn 1. But it is downhill, it's a critical braking zone. You can't afford, if you brake 2 or 3 meters too early, you must go home. You can't afford to leave any time on the table down there. And so it has been a challenge, but inevitably they'll find a way through.
Last year's pole sitter, Charles Leclerc. In fact, his last pole in Formula 1, Lewis Hamilton's last pole in Formula 1 came in 2023 at this very track, a track where he's been on pole 9 previous times. Could he become today the first driver ever to get 10 pole positions at a single circuit? The record is there to be broken. He already holds it here at the Hungaroring. He could also have the outright record for the most front row starts at a single circuit. If he can manage one more, it would be his 12th here. George Russell knows what it's like to be on pole here in Budapest, because he did it in 2022, but he has been lagging somewhat behind his teammates so far this weekend. Right, as we look into the visor of Lando Norris, waiting patiently in the garage, 30 seconds to go to the green light. Ted Kravitz is ready for us down in the pit lane.
Come on, everybody, the cars are about to come out. Where are they, Crofty? We've had
waiting.
this at the beginning. They are waiting. I mean, normally, it's funny the way you get to some circuits and they're queuing up at the end of the pit lane. Yes, I hear the growl of a Mercedes engine in the back of Carlos Sainz's Williams, but he might be thinking as he trundles past me in the pit lane, where is everybody? I think he's got a Cadillac for company at the end. But Sainz and Alex Albon have really been compromised in their preparations so far. So Williams will do well to get out of this Q1 session. Okay, they did manage it. Well, at least looked like they were going to be having enough on Friday, but today they've been pretty slow. I think they were the last 2 to finish in the timesheets in free practice 3, weren't they, Crofty? Ahead of Sergio Perez, who had problems with his brakes. They are now fixed in the Cadillac, and now we have Lance Stroll and the Aston Martins are ready to go as well. And Fernando Alonso for Q2. Yes, I'm going to call it now. I'm going to say it's going to happen. The only reason Lance Stroll might not make it is because he's had much less track time this weekend.
Yes, he has, with a suspension failure on Friday afternoon. That's the big question from this Q1 session, Martin. Can Aston Martin get out of that bottom six?
I agree with Ted. There's a half a chance. You can see how dusty the track is, just the amount of dust they're picking up, trundling down the pit lane. It's a natural bowl here, which makes it great viewing, a bit like Brands Hatch. Great viewing where you can see a lot of the track from one position in the grandstands or wherever you happen to be. And it is also then with a lot of movement, can be very dusty. Dust settles, it's windy as we pointed out. So there's been a Formula 2 sprint race since they were last out, and a Porsche Super Cup practice or qualifying. So the track will feel significantly different in the early phases.
So Aston Martin haven't got beyond Q1 in 2026. In fact, they've been the two slowest qualifiers at the last 5 consecutive Grand Prix, but they come here with a significant upgrade. It's a B-spec car. There's 16 different areas of the car that have been upgraded. Going off at turn 4, there's a tailwind there as well, and it's reportedly about a 10km/h tailwind through turn 4. It's slightly higher elevation there than it is at turn 1, but it's not what the drivers are going to be looking for. Medium tyres on Lewis Hamilton's Ferrari.
Yeah, meanwhile, when you're connected to the ground, does it matter? Well, it does matter because your aerodynamics are helped reasonably dramatically into a headwind. And similarly, very much hurt when there's a tailwind. You've got less downforce, less air going over your car.
So this is Ferrari keeping a set of softs for later in qualifying, or a set of soft tyres maybe for the race tomorrow by running mediums now. They think that they've got enough pace on these medium tyres to clear the bottom 6, because that's what you need to do to get through into Q2. It's not about the fastest time necessarily at this stage of the weekend. So it's a gamble we've seen teams take before, but on the surface, on paper, it should be a gamble that Ferrari are more than capable of. Sergio Perez has a time on the board. He's currently slower than his teammate Valtteri Bottas. Perez leads that Cadillac head-to-head 6-4 so far this season.
We haven't seen the McLaren strategy on tyres yet because they haven't gone out of the pits, but Mercedes are out there, both of them, on soft tyres.
Right, so Ferrari doing something very different to Mercedes. Hamilton crosses the line, and it is the quickest time so far, a 1:18.7. So let's see how quick that is compared to the rest. And while the Aston Martin's lapping in the mid-120s, this probably is a very good move by Ferrari. And if it's not a good move, they can come out in about 8 minutes, 9 minutes time, Martin, on a set of softs, and there's probably no harm done as long as they can put a lap in.
Yeah, you're right. They pretty much cleared the bar within 1:18. We saw a 17.9 this morning, but as I explained, the track will not be anywhere near as good a condition for a little while as it was this morning.
Right, take us through this. The man who leads the World Championship at the age of 19, Kimi Antonelli on his first flying lap.
Yep, breaking down the left inside, track still falling away from you. Leclerc's had his lap time deleted, so that's he'll disappear from that spot in a minute, and that's somewhat changed the face of that for Ferrari, hasn't it? It was his 1:18.878. It was indeed, yes. There he's gone now. So back to Antonelli, and that doesn't look flat out at all. It's not flat out at all. So has he had an issue somewhere?
No, he did a couple of preparation laps before a flying lap in practice. Fred Vesti, who drove his car in FP1, was explaining how you need to get the internals of the tyre up to its working window, not the surface of the tyre. You need to be building it up gradually, and it's that thermal heat that you want, not the surface heat. And the Mercedes maybe takes a couple more laps to do that. Verstappen's on a flyer, though.
There we go. This lovely little chicane. You take a bit of curb, hop, skip and a jump. Use the concrete on the outside. Super fast. This right-hander tightens on the exit. Just pinches a little bit there. Absolutely. Harry flatters through the left. It has to lift off a little bit, but not really downshift. Big braking zone downhill now. Keep pulling the shifts right into the apex. Pick up the throttle. Sweep to the right-hand side. Now, there's a lot of grip on the inside of that corner. Open the steering wheel. Use a bit of the pit lane in to cheat, get the car straight, help your traction. A lot of understeer, carrying him slightly wide through the final corner. But still, it goes fast as it is on the soft compound tyre, of course. Yeah, there should be a decent gap between the soft and the medium. There isn't between the soft and the medium when you're comparing Ferrari to Red Bull. That's not the best times that you would have expected. Now, what's happened to Lando Norris here? He's letting the car through, I believe. Antonelli's gone very, very fast in the first sector.
So he's on the flyer then?
Yeah, he's now on his flyer, and that was, in fact, Norris was letting Antonelli through, so as not to get a penalty for impeding. The speed is carrying through there. Look at the way, the direction change. You can just see the roll in the chassis, and the tyres tucking under a little bit there. But that Mercedes looks beautifully balanced, it really does. Down into turn 12, and he can just throw it in. The front sticks. We'll see what he looks like in the last corner compared to Max Verstappen's car on the same tyres. A little touch wide through there, but flicks across, and Max had a lot of understeer here. Antonelli looks like he's got more command of the front axle of that Mercedes. Hopefully he stayed within track limits, but he's lost time in the final sector. He got a bit wide, didn't he, in a couple of corners?
On this evidence, Martin, those medium tyres seem like a decent set of boots to put on, to be honest, because both Verstappen and Antonelli no more than 700ths of a second clear of Lewis Hamilton. George Russell is, unless he's got a great final sector up his sleeve, and that didn't look brilliant through the final corner, yeah, he's not going to be anywhere near the top three. He's not. Fifth fastest only for George Russell.
So Leclerc went again, and he's popped it into sixth place, as you can see, with a 1:19.3, which is probably kind of okay in Q1.
We'll see what the cut-off zone is. Oscar Piastri, fraction out side of the time he needs through the first two sectors. Lando Norris quicker by a couple of tenths through the first part of the lap, actually 4 tenths in the first part of the lap. Piastri, though, to the final corner. We're hoping he's kept some grip alive in those tyres, but that was a lot of drifting entering the final turn, and he goes fifth fastest ahead of Russell, but a long way on this track behind the likes of Hadjar and Hamilton, Antonelli and Verstappen. Lindblad goes P8 for Racing Bulls. He lost a lot of time with an engine change in FP3, only got out with 5 minutes to go. Liam Lawson goes ahead of him by a couple of tenths, and on board then with Lando Norris hustling his car and seemingly very happy to do so through the final turn. Goes fastest by 4 tenths of a second.
Yeah, as a professional driver, you learn to know what you have to sort out and what you can just let go with the car. Yeah, it does that, I'm okay. That from Piastri was one of those sort this out now because it was really back end of the car stepped out because the rear tyres are crying because they're overheating, and Norris had to jockey his through there as well, right through the final corner as you get to the end of the lap. But the Aston, they're really close to the inside there of the apex. Has this helped Alonso? It has indeed.
Gabriel Bortoletto will tumble down the order and into the bottom 6. He's had his lap time deleted. Lance Stroll gets out of that bottom 6. but still a little bit 4/10 behind his teammate, who's in P12. On board now with Valtteri Bottas, half a second down through the first two sectors. It seems this year, Martin, with that reduction in downforce, with the grip that isn't there, it's a track for the hustlers, this one, isn't it? If you want it on rails, this ain't the place for you.
No, they've got a lot less downforce, so we're lapping about 3 seconds slower than last year, but that's because we took a lot of grip out of the cars as well. They're narrower as well, and slightly smaller tyres, so no great surprises there. What they're not short of around here is any kind of electrical deployment. It's very easy to fill the battery, unlike Silverstone, unlike Spa, and so we don't have any of that to worry about. What it probably means is there'll be less overtaking as well.
Let's hope that's not the case, but the logic is absolutely spot on. P20 for Valtteri Bottas, where he started 4 times already during the course of this season. And then confirmation of Gabriel Bortoleto getting a lap time deleted for track limits. So that throws a spanner or 3 into the plan for Audi. And it was at turn 4 where he's gone off the track. You don't need a replay, really, to sort that one out. That's a long way off. In fact, he's gone far enough to not scrape the plank too much as well. Gabriel Bortoleto on his way back to the pits, exceeding track limits, as did Pierre Gasly, but that's not going to worry. Their timings as it stands. Ted, down to you.
Bortoleto was worried enough to ask his team to inspect the car, so he just trundled past me in the pit lane. Couldn't see anything on the edge of the floor, so it looks like it was the plank in the diffuser that he was worried about. So they've jacked him up in the Audi garage, and they are going to have a look at it. But I think there would have been just a few sort of scrapes, some curb rash, if that actually exists, Crofty. And then he'll be out with 1 run at the end to set a time. But talking of the times, as Max goes out on the same set of soft tyres, is he followed by Antonelli? Yes, he is. Alonso's right on the cutoff. An early 120, a 120.2, a 120.5 maybe will see you into Q2. Alonso, it's tantalisingly close for the 2-time world champion.
And if you're new to Formula 1, you're wondering what a plank is. It's a piece underneath the car that's not made of wood. It's made of other materials. A legality, you're not allowed to wear that away. But of course, if you straddle a curb, it gets quite badly damaged, and that's to stop teams running the cars too low, basically, and do what we used to do in the 80s and 90s and just throw a brand new floor on it every day you went out, or a repaired one, a bodged up one, whatever you had. So there's and also to take away a lot of the downforce, basically, to have a step underneath there. Otherwise, if we didn't do that over the decades, I don't think anybody would physically be able to drive these cars now. They would be so unbelievably fast if they were full ground effect, full all the right suspension, and semi-automatic or automatic gearboxes we used to have, ABS brake. If you didn't stop all of that, the cars would be too fast for the circuits and too fast for the drivers, and pointlessly fast, to be honest.
Quite. Esteban Ocon currently 14th in the timings, ahead of Ollie Behrman, who's out qualifying him at the last 4 consecutive Grand Prix. Behrman in that bottom 6, along with the 2 Williams of Albon and Sainz, the 2 Cadillacs of Bottas and Perez, and the Audi of Bortoleto, who needs to get a time on the board. Max Verstappen's gone out on a set of used tyres, but we were seeing in the practice sessions, the tyres were actually, once you cooled them down, okay to go for another run and to go faster too.
Seems the way, doesn't it? And this stage, it's always worth quite clearly going out with a bit of extra fuel on board, even though you're probably throwing away a 1/10 of a second doing that, just to give yourself that security of being able to go again, as we saw with Charles Leclerc.
A couple of tenths outside the best time through the first sector for Max Verstappen. The Red Bull has been more impressive in the middle part of this lap, going through the chicane 6 and 7. It's been named the driving centre corner now. They've all got corner names. These turn 8 and 9, Buddha, and then Pest. I don't know if it is a particularly pesky turn. At turn 9, turn 11 is a Lacey, and then we get down to Schumacher at turn 12, Senna and Ferenczi to finish the lap. Of course, the Hungarian who won the very first Grand Prix, the French Grand Prix, back in 1906. I dare say these corner names are going to take some getting used to.
Yeah, the driving centre one is not the one chicane, actually.
I'm sure they could have come up with a better name than that. You're absolutely right. Second fastest for Max Verstappen doesn't improve on his best time so far. Antonelli's not improving. George Russell is, though, currently down in 7th at the moment. Antonelli to the line. Second fastest, actually, that is his best time of the session, but he's still about 3/10 off Lando Norris. Right, George Russell, another go on these tyres, goes from 7th up to 6th.
Not surprised. He was wrestling it, wasn't he, all the way through the final corner there for George.
Here comes Carlos Sainz to try and get out of the bottom 6. Does only just, though. The right side of the line for the time being. Here's his teammate Alex Albon to try and send him back down into that bottom 6, and he hasn't. Alex Albon could find himself out here. He missed Q2 by 0.07 of a second in Spa as Leclerc goes 8th fastest. He's been out-qualified by Sainz in the last 4 races, Alex Albon. Not looking good for him here as Bortoletto puts Sainz back in the bottom 6 with his time lap. And if that counts, will be good enough for P9. Ocon moves ahead a little bit. Ollie Behrman goes up to P14. The projected cut-off time of 1:20.1. What can the rest do now? Arvid Lindblad stays 11th fastest. It'll be Colapinto and Lawson to cross the line next. Colapinto's on an out lap. Here comes Liam Lawson, and he stays 10th fastest. You've got Perez and Bottas, Stroll, Albon and Sainz in that bottom 6 as Hülkenberg goes 6th fastest. Nice lap from Nico Hülkenberg to get into the top 6. Right, Valtteri Bottas, what do you got for us? Once upon a time, you were guaranteed Q3 here, and you're down in 21st at the moment. It looks like Aston Martin have an upgrade that is better for them now than the Cadillacs. Perez, slowest of all the qualifiers. Alonso goes P14, pushes Gasly into that bottom 6. Gasly and Colapinto both on a flying lap, though they've just gone through the first sector. Stroll pits, he's out. So it's Gasly and Colapinto against Behrman and Alonso here to see what happens to sort this qualifying out. And there's a lot of people, I'm sure, with all due respect to Alpine, are probably keeping their fingers crossed that Fernando Alonso can make it into Q2.
Yeah, so it's you're absolutely right. It's the 2 Alpines now that can do some damage back there. They're both on personal best first and second sectors. Red lights are on. That's the end of the session. Gasly does indeed go 13.
And that's pushed Ollie Behrman right onto the cusp. I think Alonso's going to be safe here. So Franco Colapinto pushes Ollie Behrman down into that bottom 6. No one is on a lap behind Pierre Gasly. Fernando Alonso qualifies for Q2 for the first time this season.
All right. Good job. Maybe a bit more to come the next set. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go.
It's painful to say it, but that's quite a milestone for Aston Martin this year, isn't it? So clearly, but the really good news is that they're clearly beginning to really understand that car. If you can make upgrades like that and just suddenly leap forward, they're past. He's out-qualified there. A Haas, 2 Williams and 2 Cadillacs. So that's a decent step forward for Aston Martin. Now they need the power unit to do the same thing.
That comes, that upgrade in Zandvoort. So, Sergio Perez.
Oh, that's terrible. But why the balance changing so much?
Alex, it was a good lap considering the car is all over the place. That's on us.
Not the first time we've heard James Vowles say that during the course of qualifying this season. Sadly, for Williams, 2 cars out. For Cadillac, 2 cars out. Lance Stroll misses out too. And Ollie Behrman for Haas.
It was a good lap considering the conditions. So saw what our car had in it. Let's see what we can do overnight.
Yeah. Just keep working.
There's a race to come, and Carlos Sainz from 15th on the grid finished 3rd here back in 2021. He's got a big job to do tomorrow by a 10th of a second. Ollie Behrman is out as Aston Martin make it through with Alonso.
disappointing scenes for Williams, real struggle for them in Q1 just now. Let's start off with Carlos Sainz on his way up towards turn 4. I'm just going to slow it down for you because you get to see what's going on with the balance of the car. Just at the midpoint, I'll just roll that back for you, the midpoint of the corner, he just sit his hands on the steering wheel, just completely neutral with a little bit of oversteer kicking in there. And what looked to be the correct entry speed ends up running him straight off of circuit, and that was his first attempt at tackling that corner, and things didn't get much better after that point. Then we can go to his teammate Alex Albon, who we've just heard from on the radio. He's saying, what is going on with the balance of this car? From what I can see, you've got a bit of mid-corner understeer creeping in at turn 1, and then, because of that handful of lock, the rear then snaps away from him on the exit momentarily. Then he comes down towards turn 2, and the same thing happens. Look at the amount of understeer, he just cannot get the car in, and then when he wants to get on power, the rear isn't there for him at all. Turns into turn 3, and the thing's just jumping around, and the rear flicks around on him as well. So a real tough job for both Williams drivers there, pretty much confirmed by team principal James Vowles as well. But everyone's finding it tough. I mean, even Oscar Piastri on board the McLaren, who's right up there with the fast guys. Look at this for car correction and what the balance is like for these drivers through turn 14. And it's not just that corner, many others on the circuit as well, posing a real challenge for them. Up to you,
Let's
Poppy.
hear about that challenge from the Racing Bulls pit wall. Alan Permain is down there. What are the drivers saying, Alan? Because it does look a bit of a struggle today.
Yeah, not too bad, Crofty. Both pretty happy with things in Q1. We only used one new set, so we're in good shape for the next couple of sessions.
Alan, I noticed both your drivers' laps were very close together to each other and to their own individual laps. And it looks like they're kind of getting towards the limit there somewhere.
Yeah, I think the second set will give us a bit more. We saw the Audis found 6 or 7 tenths on that second set.
Yeah, the Audi is the big challenger, I think, for those like 9th and 10th spots that you've kind of made your own in the last few races.
Yeah, they're ours, Crofty, not Audis.
Is this weekend for you, is the objective, look, just beat Alpine and we'll go into the summer break happy, because they're our closest rivals?
I think we're just trying to do the best we can with what we have here, so that means putting it 9th and 10th and finish it 9th and 10th and see what happens in front.
Love it. Thanks, Al. Hopefully we'll talk to you ahead of Q3, see if you've got cars in Q3, but the object now is to find that top 10 time so you can go for pole in a little while. And Aston Martin, well, they're in it. Fernando Alonso did get through to the second part of sprint qualifying in Canada. He didn't take part in it because he crashed his car by that stage. And yeah, there's a rare treat for the Aston Martin pit wall. They've actually got a vested interest in the Q2 session. First time this year.
Yeah, good news. And so Alonso is showing on a used set of tyres out there, I believe. But the key thing is that Leclerc managed to get through on the same set of used tyres. He ran again, so he didn't have to lose a set of tyres in.
On the medium,
on the medium tyres, absolutely. But Ted has further news.
Thank you, Martin. Yes, I counted 3 separate runs from Alonso, so that would mean that he's used all 3 sets of his new tyres. Crofty, have you got the same information up there?
Fernando Alonso did do 3 separate runs,
and
yes.
they were all new as they passed me. So he's out of fresh tyres, isn't he? That's it. So he better hope that there's another lap left in the... But that's interesting with that radio message then. He knew that, and yet he still said the radio message that I think there's more in the car. And by extension, more in the tyre, even though it's done a run. So, yeah, optimism down here. Let's pick one on Cadillac. Valtteri Bottas getting the better of Sergio Perez. Haven't said that too many times in qualifying this year, but that'll please the Finnish crowd that always gathers here at the Hungaroring.
Yes, in the days of Kimi Räikkönen, you couldn't move for happy Finns around the back of the grandstand. 6-5 to Sergio Perez in the head-to-head battle at Cadillac. Closest one this season so far at Audi. Nico Hülkenberg, Gabriel Bortoleto. The qualifying head-to-head is 5 apiece, which makes it 17 apiece in the races that they've had as teammates.
So Fernando showing fastest of everybody in the first sector. That's because he's the only one that's done a first sector so far, because it gets reset per qualifying segment. So he did a 1:20.1 on his first efforts in Q1. Let's see what... and he's cruising at the moment, is he? He looked a bit steady down the hill, but he's pushing on it. Oh, that's pushing very, very wide indeed through turn 13. And he likes that tight inside line there of 14. See what this comes up as. So he's about a half a second slower than he was in Q1. So not too bad.
George Lucas, I think, there at the back of the Ferrari garage, watching Lewis Hamilton. Hoping the force is strong with that one for the rest of this qualifying session, if you want to quote the Star Wars this afternoon. Max Verstappen out there, I would imagine, on a new set of soft tyres, but just looking at the state of them, maybe not, to be fair, Martin. You've got the app open in front of you there.
Indeed. It hasn't always been super accurate, but a 27.6 first sector is a handy lap time, a handy sector time. Here comes a little short straight into that driving centre chicane, and Max really carrying it. You need a lot of single wheel movement to get through sectors like that, so that whichever side you're going through, that inside wheel just lifts up nice and doesn't make the whole car jump and bounce, otherwise you start bouncing on your tyres. Max had a little bit of instability in the middle of 12, looking at the long shot there, and picks the throttle up nice and cleanly as he heads now into the final turn. Comes up pretty quickly and not wrestling it through there as much as some.
Certainly not. Crosses the line, Max Verstappen, with the fastest time, 1:18.2, improves by 0.4 of a second from his best time in Q2. Romano took his maiden pole in Formula One here in 2019. At the time was the 100th different pole sitter in Formula One. Lando Norris subsequently becoming a pole sitter too, has gone quicker than Max through the first sector, and Isaac Hadjar has that sinking, spinning feeling down at turn 11, getting drawn into the gravel, spinning around 180 degrees, ruining his lap and necessitating a trip back to the pits there. Oh
yeah,
dear.
That went wrong on the way into the corner. He picked up understeer, probably just carried a bit too much speed in, and then hung on to the brake pedal a little bit too long, and the front tyres just wouldn't live with it.
I think the good news for Charles Leclerc and for Lando Norris, who's on a used set of tyres, is that the yellow flag had stopped waving by the time they got down to that corner. Leclerc goes second fastest. Norris crosses the line now, 0.3 off Max Verstappen. But as I say, that's a used set that he's using. Only one set used during Q1 as well. So they're saving tyres for the top 10 shootout. They think they'll be in there, no problem. Arvid Lindblad goes third fastest, and Alan Permain saying they were saving tyres during Q1 for him too. George Russell got caught up in those double-waved yellows that were flying when Isaac Hadjar went off the track as Ocon goes 8th fastest. So I think George Russell's first flying lap here compromised by those yellow flags. 8th fastest for Gasly. Antonelli 0.07 of a second clear of Max Verstappen, so he didn't get compromised by the yellows. George Russell did, and that's just bad luck being in the wrong place at the wrong time for George.
Yeah, to confirm, Antonelli Verstappen new tyres, Lando Norris not. Lindblad was, Leclerc was, and Piastri, both McLarens on used tyres in those front runners.
On board with Lewis Hamilton, soft tyres on, not the mediums from Q1 that served him so well. Goes quickest, wow, into the 117s for Lewis Hamilton by a couple of tenths of a second. And whilst he goes fastest, I said that the yellow flags stopped waving when Charles Leclerc got down to turn 12, where Isaac Hadjar went off the track.
I've got no grip on them. Like, I don't know. We're doing something wrong with tires. I have zero grip.
Yeah, I don't think he's alone in that, Kimi Antonelli, but I can see what he feels because you're just riding on board with him. You can You can see that he really is wrestling and fighting away. This is the Isaac Hadjar moment down at turn 12.
Yeah, so he understeered, front slid into the gravel, and then of course the back has no grip when it gets there. Gave it a little bit of throttle.
Okay, but come on, someone is always the same.
Was he talking about traffic?
Yeah, I don't think it was traffic though, was it? You can see George Russell just in the back of the picture there. Charles Leclerc has been noted for a yellow flag infringement, and whether that's the stewards wanting to just have a little look there to see if he did lift off or not when he went through that zone, if the yellow flags were out.
Yeah, if it's double yellow, you've got to really heavily.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, your time normally, as you've seen with George Russell, you can't have a time if there's, everybody assumes that it's double waved, double yellows. If you go through that zone, that's it.
That's your lap goal.
Don't even try to do a time.
But it's whether there was a single waved yellow, a double waved yellow. Did he lift? Did he not lift? Did he need to abandon his lap? Well, was it a double yellow? Should Charles Leclerc's lap time have been deleted, I wonder, the 1:18.9? We'll let that sort itself out, but just have that in the back of your mind as Lewis Hamilton comes back into the pits. Hamilton knocked out in Q2 in Hungary last year.
Yeah, it's a pretty tricky lap. There's plenty more time in it.
It was a pretty tricky lap for him there. Only reached Q3 by, what, 100th of a second here in 2024, but looking in a better shape, it has to be said, this time around. No further investigation. Charles Leclerc for a yellow flag infringement. Phew, we can get on with qualifying with no penalties for anyone. Ted, down to you.
Yeah, so far, Crofty, of course. A couple of things from down here. Gabriel Bortoletto did an outlap and then came straight back into the pits. So I think that was on a used set. Isaac Hadjar has put a new set of softs and has gone straight back out to make amends and get a time on the board. And not for the first time, Fernando Alonso has outfoxed yours truly down here in the pits, because he did have another set of new tyres. They were down the back of the couch. So he's on them now.
Right.
He found them.
He found them?
Found another set, yeah.
he had a bit in spare. So let's see what these tyres can do for him. So far, yeah, not on a pace to trouble the top 10, it has to be said. I think if he can get to 12th or 13th, that would be a very fine job in this qualifying session. When that upgraded engine for Honda comes through in Zandvoort, then they'll think more about the fringes of the top 10. But that, to get Alonso into the top 10, that is a sensational lap from him. A 1:19.8. Fernando Alonso into the top 10. Well, if he stays there, brilliant for him. Isaac Hadjar should have the pace to replace him, but we haven't seen a lap time from Isaac Hadjar. Because the last time, Martin, he went on a push lap, he went off the track.
He did, down at turn 12, so this is turn 2. It keeps cascading down here. Oh, nice wide exit there is no problem, because you've got plenty of grip through 3. Nick a bit of slipstream, get on the racing line, and Lando Norris being told the wind is gusting into turn 1, and we know that is still partly a tailwind component in there for the drivers. So Hadjar so far so good on this lap.
Yep, he's halfway through it, but it's the corner that caught him out before is the tricky one to come. And he's heading that way now, plunging downhill. Very good middle sector for Isaac Hadjar. Nice entry into that corner. Stays on the curb this time, no gravel involved. This is looking good for Isaac Hadjar. Might just start to trouble the top 3 if he carries on at this rate. 27.8 was his middle sector. Has he got enough grip in those tyres? Look very neat as well. Through the final corner, does go quickest by about 6/100ths of a second from Lewis Hamilton. Got to say, as that lap went on, it just looked better and better from the young Frenchman.
Absolutely did. He's had to use another set of tyres, of course, which will compromise him in Q3, but nonetheless, that's a cracking lap time from Isaac Hadjar. Max Verstappen has not gone faster than his personal best. Car trying to get away from him in turn 5. Traffic gets nicely out of the way. I love this drone shot. And we pick up the Red Bull and we don't hit the bridge.
Right, Kimi Antonelli, 1:18.1, gets him third fastest. That lap is going to be deleted for Kimi Antonelli. So a slightly worrying time for him, as you can see there. Plunges down into that bottom six, hasn't got a time on the board. He is out on the track at the moment and has got the pressure here of having one lap and one lap only to get himself into the top 10. The championship leader who qualified 15th last year, and that's where he finds himself currently in this qualifying session. Verstappen stays third fastest. George Russell's improved in the middle sector. Piastri flying in the first sector. Bortoletto improving too, as he needs to get a time on the board. They're all out there, bar Fernando Alonso, whose job is done for the time being in this session. George Russell, fourth fastest. We need this lap, Kimi, say Mercedes. Looking now to Oscar Piastri, who's currently 8th fastest, goes behind Isaac Hadjar, ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who's doing a great job of saving tyres and getting the times in here. Looks like they might have saved a set for the race to come. Bortoletto goes 9th fastest, pushes Fernando Alonso out of this qualifying session. P11 currently. Hulkenberg next across the line, goes 7th fastest. That pushes Liam Lawson out of the top 10. Lawson crosses the line. He then goes back into the top 10 again, and Charles Leclerc finds himself right on the cusp at the moment on a flying lap. Norris, 1:17.4. Great lap from him. 4/10 clear of Isaac Hadjar. Antonelli does get that lap in, goes 6th fastest, pushes Leclerc into the bottom 6. Lindblad now goes into the top 6. Leclerc and Bortoletto are now finding themselves outside of the top 10. Ocon can't make it into the top 10, only Leclerc can.
Leclerc then is on 2 personal bests. That's looking okay. Antonelli did not use a further set of new tyres. He'll be hoping to sneak through on the original set.
Gasly just misses out, 11th fastest for him. Colapinto misses out too. Here comes Charles Leclerc, pole position for him last year, and right at the end of Q2 he forces his way back into the top 10 at the expense of Liam Lawson. Hamilton is safe, no issues for him whatsoever, but Charles Leclerc left it very, very late. Kimi Antonelli left it late. They made it through in the end.
Yeah, unfortunately for Fernando Alonso, he went too early, didn't he? Peaked too early there, because the track, as we talked about before we got going, ramps up. You know, they put the Formula One rubber down, clean up the dust.
Such a bad lap. It's so hard to drive.
Sadly for Liam Lawson, hard to drive, couldn't make it through, and it's 6-5 to him in that head-to-head battle now with Racing Bulls, because Arvid Lindblad has made it into the top 10. That's 4 in a row now for him in terms of Q3 appearances. Lawson misses out though. Pierre Gasly misses out. Alpine haven't been in Q3 here since 2022. Colapinto, his teammate, down in P13. Gabriel Bortoletto, 14th on the grid. Esteban Ocon 15th. Fernando Alonso 16th for Aston Martin. And Lando Norris with the fastest time of a 1:17.4. He's been pacey. Can they catch him for pole?
There's a high chance I broke the floor in turn 3.
Copy, we'll have a look.
I mean, for me, we seem genuinely competitive, so let's throw everything at it.
Welcome back to Budapest, qualifying for the Hungarian Grand Prix. Where Arvid Lindblad finds himself in the final part of qualifying. Anthony Davidson down at the Skypad. What are you monitoring after that Q2 session?
Well, that was a frantic one, wasn't it? Really enjoyed that. Pretty much all started here, all the action with Isaac Hadjar in turn 12, getting a bit of understeer first of all, getting in the gravel, then looping it around. And a few drivers were affected by that, not just Isaac himself. There goes George Russell, and we've got his onboard here that we can go to. He was on a hot lap on the brand new soft tyre, and you can see the dust on the right-hand side of your screen. He sees that yellow flag, car going off into the grass, and has to back out and abort his lap. But then there was intrigue around this guy here, Charles Leclerc. Now, listen, I'm not going to speak over it, just listen to him lifting off because he gets a single yellow flag, light panel on the exit of turn 11. Here we go, and listen to his throttle lift off plus a downshift. So it's subtle, and you've got to be aware, but he is aware of the situation. Single yellow flag. It's waved there by the marshal on the left-hand side. He knows when you're on a hot lap, you just need to lift off. It's very brief, and let's be honest, it doesn't really do much to your lap time, but lifting off seems to suffice these days with the stewards, and he gets away with that one. That's why he was momentarily under investigation, but was allowed off the hook. And then finally, this one here with Kimi Antonelli, turn 6 and 7. So 6 is this corner here, 7's the next one. I'll play at full speed first of all, see if you can see any track limits. So it's the apex of the corner. I'll just rewind it for you and show you how tight this is. I just have to go frame by frame here, because it's the inside white line where, yeah, it's probably, where are we? Yeah, probably there, give or take, but how close is that? So they've got a real eagle eye on this one, more than what I can spot from this onboard anyway. So that, I know the stewards have got different angles, but that's what he was pinged for. That's why he had to have that last-ditched effort at the end of qualifying 2 there. Back to you, Crofty.
Thanks ever so much indeed, Ant. From the Skypad to the Racing Bulls pit wall. Alan Permain, you've got a man in the top 10, and it's Arvid Lindblad, who's come up trumps in qualifying again. What's he doing that Liam isn't quite finding in this session? Oh, you might be on mute there, Alan. It's like a Zoom call gone wrong. We can't quite hear you. Let's try again.
How about now?
That's brilliant.
Yeah, no obvious, Crofty, what's going on. Liam's just struggling in that first sector, too much understeer, and where he's been really strong in the last sector, he wasn't able to put that together in Q2.
We're hearing a lot of drivers talking about there's no grip on that run, or obviously we've got a lot of wind swirling around this track as well. What is confusing them out there? Because some are fine and others just can't make it stick.
I think it's difficult to know, Martin, at the moment. We need to get back and have a really good look at things. Arvid's clearly very, very happy with the car. And as I say, Liam, too much understeer first sector, too much oversteer last sector.
Alan, thanks ever so much. Go well in the final parts of qualifying. Pole position then in 2026, it's 6-4 at Mercedes. Kimi Antonelli with 6 poles, George Russell with 4. It's not a given that Mercedes are going to be on pole here today. Lando Norris starting to look like a very, very keen contender.
Yeah, Lewis didn't put another set of tyres on, unlike Charles Leclerc, but so it kind of looks like Lewis versus Lando, doesn't it, for pole? But then I think when it all settles down, Charles Leclerc can be in there as well, Oscar Piastri too. I think the Red Bulls have got some pace if they can just nail it. The car looks a little bit tail happy at the end of the lap, the 2 Red Bulls. So it was quite difficult to read, actually, those 2 stages. All over the place, a little bit like the wind direction and speed, absolutely all over the place, and maybe that's significant. But my gut feeling is it looks like Norris v Hamilton for pole, but let's see who can make that incorrect.
Now, officially, the track temperature is about 43 degrees. It's still pretty sweltering here at the Hungaroring. I think that sensor might be in the shade a little bit, and the shade is starting to come over the main straight as well. The pit lane's still bright sunshine. but the sun behind the grandstand. Martin and I sat in the commentary box looking down on the pit lane. Everyone looks hot, look tired. Keeping us cool in the middle of it all is Ted Kravitz.
Well, you say that, David Croft, but there is a high cirrus cloud that has just obscured the big ball of fire in the sky from us here in the pit lane. Actually, as I say that, just talking about a qualifying cloud, it's being blown away by the wind.
You see that happens.
Now it does happen. So now the sun comes out again. But the sun shall shine on Nico Hülkenberg. Not for him, the hell of the 11th place that's really sort of tantalised him. How many times has he been 11th in qualifying this season?
Oh,
too many.
Quite a few. Too many. Yes.
So yeah, Gabriel Bortoleto, Audi, saying my bad, it was my problem, not a good qualifying from me. But Nico Hülkenberg, I remind you, still without any points in 2026. Surely he'll end up 9th or 10th in qualifying, and then surely that'll be his debut points by the time we talk again Sunday afternoon. Here's hoping.
Wow, the longest Nico Hülkenberg has ever been in a season without scoring a point. Green light is on, and we are go for Q3. And first and foremost, well done to Ferrari, well done to McLaren. Saving tyres for the race tomorrow, but they should all have, the top runners and riders should have two brand new sets of soft boots for this one.
Yeah, Ferrari played a smart hand, I think, didn't they? Getting through Q1 on the mediums, because it's despite Leclerc having thrown another set on of the soft tyres, but it worked a treat for them. And now we'll see who's got the pace when everything should be perfect. And it's a track where you've got to give a little bit in the opening phase, certainly in the middle part of the lap, to have payback at the end of the lap. It's quite a hard judgment call, that one.
I remember back to George Russell's maiden pole in Formula One, came here in 2022. He wasn't actually fastest in any single sector on the lap, but there was enough consistency over it to get that pole.
Yeah. Rear wing that wide open then, and that'll close. The aerodynamics will reattach pretty quickly. And you take a nice sweeping, smooth line in. The key thing is to pick, when you got over 1,000 horsepower on your right foot, the key thing is to pick the throttle up ASAP without spinning the rear tyres up. If you flash the surface up and spin the rear tyres, they change, the compound changes properties, and sometimes you just can never get it back again. 27.5 is a solid first sector.
It is. It's been matched by Oscar Piastri. A couple of thousandths of a second, a few thousandths of a second faster. Oscar Piastri, the Max Verstappen. The drone tries to keep up with the Red Bull and eventually can't, because Max has got a bit more power available to him through this middle part of the lap. Lando Norris a 10th up on both Piastri and Verstappen through the first part of the lap. It's a 27.6 for Verstappen in the middle part of the lap. He's making his way now to the penultimate corner as Oscar Piastri goes faster than Max Verstappen in the middle part of this lap. Advantage McLaren over Red Bull in that battle. Lando Norris gets to the end of the second sector, and he's ahead of both of them through those first two sectors. Verstappen to the line, 1:17.7. He improves by half a second on his best time in Q2. Can Oscar Piastri, front row here the last 2 years, go quicker? Yes, he can. By 4/100ths of a second, Piastri's pulled one out of the bag to be ahead of the Red Bull. Lando Norris giving it maximum hustle, and by over 3/10ths of a second getting provisional pole. But Lewis Hamilton now fastest in the first sector as Isaac Hadjar goes into the top four.
Yeah, Norris has got some pace left in his pocket, judging by that last corner. If he can share the grip out a little bit better around the lap. Hamilton then, a man who a calendar year ago said, I'm not good enough. I think they should change the driver at Ferrari. Thank goodness they didn't, because he's on fine form. A little bit of a wrestle in turn 13. Front's washing out, but there's the racing groove. And a good drive off the exit, and he goes fastest.
Provisional pole to Lewis Hamilton by 1/10 of a second. His teammate Charles Leclerc was a couple of tenths down, and Bronze is only P3. Kimi Antonelli was also a couple of tenths down. 6 poles so far this season. P4 is the best he can manage for the time being. Now, here comes George Russell. Can he get closer to his teammate, closer to the front? No, he's half a second down. It's George Russell, and only 7th fastest. Lewis Hamilton, 12 months on from being not good enough, is very much good enough for the time being. His words, not mine, by the way, that he wasn't good enough. And provisional pole is his. Are we on for a 10th Hungarian Grand Prix pole for Lewis Hamilton?
We'll find out when they go again. So 6 minutes remaining. We know Norris got some more pace because we saw him have that sort of slightly wild oversteer in the final corner. So that'll go a bit faster. I suspect Piastri's will too. Red Bull struggling a little bit to get to the absolute ultimate pace. George Russell, half-second shy. That's a lot in Formula One, a half-second. Lando was understeering badly through 13 as well, so his tyres had run out by the end of the lap. Watch this. I thought he was going round on the exit there. So Norris definitely with more time in his pocket.
It's like you say, Martin, a track, you've got to give a bit, you've got to take a bit, you know, you've got to give a little bit back. And I just thought this morning, watching FP3, Ferrari's strategy seemed to be take a bit out in the middle sector. Don't push quite so hard where the tyres can overheat, because it'll all come back to us in the final couple of corners.
Yeah, you leave the pits with a brand new set of tyres and a quantifiable amount of grip, and you've got to share it out through the whole lap.
Ferrari and Lewis Hamilton fans satisfied, I'm sure, by that first part of qualifying. Lewis Hamilton on provisional pole. He would be, if he confirms that, the oldest pole sitter in a Grand Prix since Mario Andretti, who was 42 at the time when he got pole for the 1982 Italian Grand Prix, driving for Ferrari that day. Age is just a number, right? Just a number, Martin. George Russell needs to improve. Half a second down on Lewis Hamilton, but once again, a couple of tenths back on his teammate, Kimi Antonelli.
You don't have time for a cup of tea. Don't miss the end of this. This is going to be great.
Well, they're all queuing up, aren't they? And even on a track that's 2.7 miles, those couple of tenths, 3 tenths, can be made up. Worth pointing out, though, this time last year, Charles Leclerc took pole, and he was the only driver to improve on his Q2 time here at the Hungaroring. Now, we're seeing others improving by a tenth here and a tenth there, but he was the only one that managed that improvement. The question now is, can they improve on their first time in Q3?
I think there'll be, as long as somebody doesn't sort of dip a tyre in and drag dust onto the track. You've got a lot of people moving about. I mentioned that earlier on in this sort of natural dust bowl. But what used to compromise them here, when they didn't have such good concrete edges to the racetracks and the curbs, was somebody just dragging dust onto the track, and we had a sort of a disappointing final shooter. Shouldn't be that problem today. The track should still keep ramping up, and once again, they've all got exactly the same idea.
The oldest race winner in over half a century could become the oldest pole sitter in the last 44 years. Car number 44 looking good. 3 minutes to go of Q3. Pole up for grabs. Ted Kravitz, down to you.
I seem to remember Hamilton's last Grand Prix pole was here, wasn't it, Crofty?
In 2023,
a few years ago, yeah, I think you said it just a moment ago. So, if you're wondering where the pace has gone for Mercedes, so are they, and it just seems to be the same as Antonelli said earlier in qualifying. Bono, I just don't have the grip. It's the same for Charles Leclerc, but Lando Norris against Lewis Hamilton, they have found it. They've got the grip. Is it just between them, or can Mercedes and Antonelli get in there?
Lando against Lewis. No L plates on the driver's rear wing. They are more than experienced enough as Nico Hülkenberg gets his Audi into gear and gets it out into the pit lane.
Yeah, I'm sure McLaren could have done without that little hold up there. In terms of trundling out the pit lane as they wanted, keep the tyres as much as they can where they want them. So we will have all 10 cars out on the track shortly.
And Hamilton, Martin, will be setting his final flying lap first, assuming he doesn't do another preparation lap.
And will he have to pass anybody while he's doing that as they get up to speed?
I just wonder at the moment, is it worth another preparation lap for Lewis Hamilton? Because then he wouldn't be passing anyone at speed. We'll see. I think he's going for it. Full beans down the straight and into turn one. Active aero slams shut. Gives him the downforce to take that first corner, and he's on his way.
Yeah, had to do a little correction on the way into the corner. So 27.3 is the fastest first sector we've seen, but as we've explained, it's not always matters if you can go keep the grip for the middle of the lap, but you don't want to be too tidy there. This is 27.5. We did see him have a correction or two, or is he just saving the grip in the final two sectors? We're about to find out.
Charles Leclerc at 27.6. Neither Ferrari improving during the first sector. Max Verstappen at 27.6. He hasn't improved in the first sector either. The only one who has improved is Kimi Antonelli with a 27.4. That's the threat to Hamilton at the moment, who, as you can see through the first two sectors, is nearly half a second adrift of a time he needs to extend his pole advantage. Who else in the middle sector? Leclerc's gone slower too, a 27.9 for him. It was a 28.0 for Hamilton, 27.8 for Verstappen. We are not seeing improvements out on the track. Hamilton crosses the line. It's a 1:17.2 from his first flying lap in Q3 that they are all still chasing, and Antonelli's the only one who's improving. Leclerc crosses the line. P3's the best that he can do. Verstappen has spun, and that's a yellow flag. Antonelli is going to have to lift off. Russell might have to lift off too. At the final corner, Verstappen loses it. Antonelli stays on the second row. George Russell's not improving here. Got caught out with yellow flags at the wrong time. Had to lift. P7's the best he can do. But Norris still out there and able to improve, and he has done in the first sector.
Yeah, so the two McLarens will not be affected by that Verstappen spin. They were last out. We saw them delayed almost, and Norris mighty fast, but there's another yellow out there.
There's a double yellow out there, but I think Lando Norris is clear through it. Lando Norris is on course to take pole if he's got the grip around this final corner. At the moment, a tentative grip for Lewis Hamilton on that pole position. Norris has snatched it by 12,000th of a second. Lando Norris takes pole here in Budapest. And hey, they are delighted about that. They really are. Oscar Piastri's had to back out. P5 for him. Lewis Hamilton came within 13 milliseconds of becoming the oldest pole sitter in 44 years. He's on the front row alongside Lando Norris. The second yellow flag was for George Russell, stopping at turn one.
We saw him adjusting something on the steering wheel. He had to give up through the last corner anyway. Russell starts 7th. At the moment, no penalties incoming that we know about or expect with power units or what have you. But Lando Norris then delivered when he had to. And that was, wow. And it's not often you see Max Verstappen make mistakes like that, is it?
No,
So
having to push, Martin, harder than the grip allowed.
Yeah, and just like throwing caution to the wind in the final corner, back end of the car, I suspect just wouldn't stick for him. We're about to see. He's thrown it in, and he had to correct a slide on the way in. And he sort of got a bit of an anti-lock going on there. And Max did not just leave it there and ruin everybody's lap. No. He drove out of the way, but that enabled Norris then. If Max had stayed there, then Norris wouldn't have had a chance.
Certainly wouldn't. It compromised Antonelli, it compromised Russell. They were the next cars on the scene, but everything had been cleared up by the time this man arrived at it.
Yeah! Gorgeous. Go, what a voice to be honest. Thank you very much.
For the second time in 3 years here in Budapest, and for the first time this season, Lando Norris is on pole. Mercedes power